Hi everyone, I'm Hoodie Angel Brandon. Super Smash Bros. Is a series that has brought together a lot of franchises with its huge roster of characters and has introduced a lot of people to these worlds and characters. Of course, we've got the big series like Mario, Zelda, and Pokemon, as well as more obscure ones like the Mother series. And of course, a lot of Fire Emblem reps. Just all the Fire Emblems. Except Byleth. Where is Byleth? We even got Cloud Strife as a character. So it's interesting to see all these different worlds and characters together. But one of them that I really don't know a lot about is Persona, which joined the series thanks to Joker. Being a lifelong Nintendo fanboy, I don't really know much about the series because its main games aren't really on Nintendo. But my friend was very generous and got me a PlayStation 4 specifically so I could try this game because I was at least a little bit interested in it. Which, real talk, was very generous. Thank you again. Also, after I got a PlayStation 2 specifically to play Dragon Quest VIII, and now a PS4 specifically to play Persona 5, I guess I only get even-numbered PlayStation consoles to play one specific RPG game. So I guess join me for the PlayStation 6 review of Final Fantasy XIX. Anyway, this is all a long roundabout way of saying that I want to take a look at Persona 5, give my thoughts on it as someone who really doesn't know the series and has always just kind of done the Nintendo thing and is now taking a look at a rather major Sony PlayStation exclusive game.
Why the heck are you looking at me? What, you think I know about this series? Alright, I'll give it a go. But don't hate me if I get something wrong, Persona fanboys. Persona is a series of RPGs developed by Atlus as spin-offs to their Shin Megami Tensei franchise. The series first released on PlayStation in 1996 and so far has 5 mainline games. Mostly though, I've heard people talk about 3 through 5. From what I understand, that's where the games added the socialization element that sort of gave the series its identity. That leaves 1 and 2 as sort of black sheep of the franchise. I don't know much about them, but I've heard they include everyone's favorite anime character, Hitler! I never would have guessed there was an RPG series with him in it, but, well, here we are. This particular game, Persona 5, was released in Japan in 2016 for the series' 20th anniversary on PlayStation 4. It released elsewhere in 2017. Persona 5 seems to have brought the series into the spotlight, getting much more attention than its predecessors. Like them, it's also gotten, or is getting, numerous spin-offs, like an anime, manga, a Musou-style game in the vein of Dynasty, Hyrule, and Fire Emblem Warriors, a dancing game, and a sort of definitive edition called Persona 5 Royal, which adds a new party member, locations, some fantastic music tracks, and more. I have mixed feelings on that last one since it reminds me of Pokemon selling me a new version with move tutors, but we're going to ignore that for now and just focus on the vanilla version of the game. Its main protagonist, Joker, even appears as a guest fighter in Super Smash Bros. That's what got me most interested in the game. But as a Nintendo boy, I'm curious, does this game really steal the show? Let's find out. The game opens with an animated cutscene of a heist at a classy casino, and a thief making his escape. This is our frizzy-haired protagonist, codenamed Joker. The game teaches you some basics as you make your way out of the casino in style. Things take a turn for the absolute worst, however, when you end up ambushed, told you've been betrayed by your teammate, and dragged off to the police station, where you're interrogated and persuaded to fess up to your many crimes. They even have you sign a phony confession. So, first things first, I have to give this game some credit. When it starts, you get to enter your name. I spent a lot of my life with games that didn't let me fit my whole name. Now it's common for me to be able to fit it, so that's not really special here. But no, that's too easy. Persona let me fit my first and last name, with space to spare. 10 out of 10 game. Obviously, this is because in Japan, you're usually only referred to by your first name by those close to you, so they have the family name available for others. But this is still really cool to see. Why is this so amazing to me? I couldn't tell you, but boy, it made me happy when I saw it. Anyway, back on topic. After this, you're formally interrogated by Prosecutor Sai Nijima, who has you recount the events that led you to this point. At this point, the game flashes back to over half a year prior. It's your job to remember every detail of how you got here, from the moment you transferred schools and started the Phantom Thieves up till now. You begin to recount your tale, starting on the day you transferred to your new school, Shujin Academy. The reason for your transfer? You stepped in to prevent a woman from getting assaulted. However, the man you stopped got hurt in the process, and managed to spin the story and sue you for the assault. Now on probation, you're moving in with an associate of your parents, a grumpy man named Sojiro Sakura, aka Boss, aka Coffee Dad. He runs a little cafe called LeBlanc that sells curry and coffee, which is where you'll be spending your year. On the way to LeBlanc, you find a mysterious app on your phone and have a strange vision. Deleting the app, you make your way to the cafe. Sojiro sets you up in the attic and reminds you to stay out of trouble. Because of your probation, one slip up and it's off to juvie for you. It probably wouldn't be smart to get involved in any criminal activity like robbing a casino or anything. Just keep your head down and stay out of trouble. All the while, news of mental shutdowns and psychotic breakdowns are happening on TV. The victims of these incidents go crazy and shut down, causing accidents. These have resulted in even more unrest in the city. The world basically just kind of sounds like it's falling apart, doesn't it? That night, you have a dream that you're in a prison. There you meet two girls, Caroline and Justine, and a man named Igor who has an unnaturally long nose. He welcomes you to his velvet room and informs you that you are a prisoner of fate, and your current path will lead to ruin. However, he and his twin wardens are going to help rehabilitate you into a trickster who will be able to escape this fate. The next day, Sojiro takes you to register at your new school and your rehabilitation can begin. Come on down to Sujin. We've got Phantom Thieves, Blobfish, fan art, your new best friend, Becky, and Bad Touch Sensei. Ew! Okay, real talk, the PE teacher Kamoshida is absolutely terrible, as you find out. A former Olympic gold medalist, he uses his status to take advantage of his students. You learn this on your way to your first day of school from fellow student Ryuji Sakamoto, who explains how Kamoshida views himself as the king of the castle. However, when you arrive at school, it's somehow been turned into an actual castle thanks to the strange app on your phone, which appeared once again. Here, Kamoshida is king and sentences you and Ryuji to be executed. To save yourselves, you awaken to the power of your persona, Arsene. As you escape, you meet the thief Morgana, who explains that this castle is actually Kamoshida's distorted heart, hidden from most, but visible to you. To save his victims and prevent Kamoshida from expelling you and breaking your probation, you'll need to become a phantom thief and stop Kamoshida by stealing the source of his distorted desires, causing him to have a change of heart and repent his crimes. And Kamoshida is just the beginning. There are many taking advantage of others, and as a phantom thief with the power to change things, you'll have to steal more hearts to try and change the world. But just how did you end up caught? Even though you know where the story is headed, I found it interesting to pick up all the pieces of just how you got to this point. Our main protagonist is the aforementioned Joker. With his poofy hair and ability to pick responses to various dialogue options, I immediately took a liking to him. I've mentioned I really love self-insert-y characters before, and I just love Joker for that. How nice he ends up is up to the player. You can make him a snarky guy, a womanizing cheater, or a total sweetheart. Since I feel bad picking the mean dialogue options, I basically turned him into the teen mom. Most of the dialogue options don't really impact the story except at a few key points, but it's fun to see all the ways you can take his character anyway. Aside from Joker, the main characters are your eventual Phantom Thief teammates, like fellow students from Shujin and a cat.
Once again, I am not a cat!
Overall, the various characters are great, and not just the main cast. Some of the supporting characters I like just as much, if not more, than our main cast. Akechi, awesome. Joker, radical. Futaba, totally elite. But good people, have you even heard of Mr. Yoshida? I give you the single most wholesome character in gaming with the redemption arc that puts Steven Universe to shame. All praise be to Toranosuke Yoshida. Also, Coffee Dad, please adopt me. These two, alongside my precious child Mishima, are the holy trinity, and I will not tolerate any slander upon them. All these characters feel super fleshed out thanks to the confidant system. They're kind of like support convos from Fire Emblem, where you have a little discussion type event with the character, but unlike those where the characters have a lot of back and forth, here it's mostly them talking or things happening and you just respond every so often from set dialogue options. Then, based on the responses, you earn affection points, and if you get enough points, you can do the next rank of the confidant. This is a bit different from Fire Emblem, where you get affection from things like battles, and once you reach the next level, things play out automatically and you can't really influence the support. Another difference is the confidants have 10 supports as opposed to Fire Emblem's usual 3 to 4. This offers a lot more space to flesh out the character's relationship with Joker, and makes it feel a bit more natural in some cases. Really, the only characters I actually disliked by the end were the obvious hate-sink villain characters. Even some characters who were rather mean at first, like Caroline, Justine, Sai, and Akechi, ended up being at least understandable and sympathetic. Let me romance Akechi-kun, you cowards! I think I just summarized at least half of the Persona fandom in a single sentence. Anyway, that covers the basics of the story and characters for now. Next, let's go over how this game looks for a moment. Even before Smash, I had seen a bit of this game, and the thing that stood out to me the most was the presentation. The black, red, and white color scheme just looked so snazzy, exciting, daring. It fit a game about thieves so well. Occasionally, it could hurt my eyes a little bit, but I guess that's more due to my own inability to take regular breaks. In the music, everyone's heard about Last Surprise and Life Will Change, but a lot of the other tracks are just as fantastic too. Even just the standard background music for day-to-day activities and exploring palaces. It makes sense after all, some of the game's dungeons can drag on quite a bit, so they have to be really catchy to stand up to a potential 6-hour dungeon crawl. I will say occasionally some of the lyrics can be kind of hard to hear, like River in the Desert.
A heartbeat for a demon!
A heartbeat for a demon? Oh, a heartbeat for a Tin Man. Alright, that makes sense. See, in this case, a Tin Man refers to someone who doesn't have a heart, and you know what, I don't have time to analyze lyrics. Even if you can't always quite tell what the lyrics are, they're still amazing songs, so no big deal. And the game has a ton of voice acting, and just about everyone's voice was great. This covered a lot of spoken dialogue, as well as in-battle quotes, and even just little chats while exploring mementos. This made each character feel even more fleshed out and charming, though a few characters have a tendency to repeat themselves a bit. Are you for real?
For real? For real? For real? For real? For real?
I could make a drinking game out of how often they mention the shitty adults. I know it's a major theme of the game, but sometimes it just feels a bit overdone. It feels like some kind of edgy kids next door. Though, as I mentioned, fortunately, there are good adults, mostly your various confidants. Overall, I just think they absolutely nailed the presentation of this game. It's super solid across the board, and probably my favorite aspect of the game as a whole. The game itself is split between two parts. A phase where you live your day-to-day life, attending classes as a student, forging bonds with allies and confidants, shopping, and so on. I'll call this the preparation phase. The other part is where you explore palaces or mementos and battle. I'll call this the exploration phase. Let's start with the prep phase. In this phase, you'll spend your day wandering around town and doing various activities. Some activities, like buying things at the shop and just talking to NPCs, doesn't take any time, and you can do as much of this as you want. Most other activities do take time though, and each day you'll only have enough time for 2 big activities. Thus, it's usually best to do as much shopping as you can before you do a regular activity. Not only that, but this game is on a time limit, so time is of the essence. Figuring out directions on the first few days sucks. It gets better as you get a read on the area and unlock areas you can fast travel to, but even then, I got lost in the train station again on my second run.
Oops. I guess I'm just not very observant. Not that I needed this game to tell me that. Anyway, there are a ton of other activities you can do, like hanging out with your friends and confidants to raise your confidant level and unlock new perks. An unlockable fishing minigame, creating thief tools to help with exploring various palaces, working a part-time job, or various things that increase your social stats. The social stats affect things like how many thief tools you can make at once, or let you progress through certain confidant ranks, among other things. Most of the activities you can do will affect the social stats. These include reading a book, playing a game, hanging out in a diner, and going to the hot springs. But the best use of your time is taking the Big Bang Burger Challenge to raise your guts. But, this isn't much of a challenge. This is like a regular meal for me. Oh boy, now this is a challenge. I regret all my choices, especially the fact that I did this 5 times. But real talk, grinding social stat points is a massive pain, especially early on. But it gets a bit better when you get into some of the later confidants, as they give bonus stat points. But a lot of these need ranks 4 to 5 stats, and assuming you've been leveling them at a relatively even pace, you won't need that many points by then, since there's a good chance you're close to maxed out, so those points will start going to waste. It doesn't really matter, but it sure feels bad to keep getting kindness points when what I really need is charm. As I mentioned, as your social stats grow, you'll be able to hang out with and increase your bond with various confidants, getting to know them better and unlocking occasional perks. I loved this aspect of the game a lot. They'll talk and you can reply to them. If you give them a favorable answer, you'll get affection points. If you don't get enough affection points, you'll be unable to progress their confidant, but this can be remedied by simply spending more time with them. The rank just won't go up right away. You also get a bonus to affection points if you have a persona that matches their confidant arcana. I'll explain that a bit more later. In addition, for the game's many female confidants, you can enter a romance with them if you get their confidant rank high enough. And also you'll have the option to give them gifts while hanging out with them to get bonus affection points. This is of course only available for the game's many waifus. No husbandos allowed. No wonder the repressed fandom has a thing for Akechi. And yes, because this is an anime game, you're allowed to have more than one waifu, or even go for a harem route. But don't do that, come on! Joker's so smooth, he doesn't need to cheat. Just come on, one waifu for lifeu, okay? Just, please. Managing all the activities can be really stressful, especially since you're almost always on a time limit for stealing the hearts of your targets. It makes it hard to squeeze everything you want in. Before Fire Emblem 3 Houses came out, I saw a lot of people comparing its exploration style to Persona's. This is one thing I think 3 Houses handles a bit better. While Persona has a lot more to do, 3 Houses' simplicity helps prevent things from being overwhelming, especially as you expand your professor rank to allow you to do more. Here though, you pretty much always have the ability to do 1 thing if you explore, or 2 if you do other activities, with a maximum of 3 things if you unlock a certain confidant perk. But even then, there's just so much to do that it feels like a drop in the bucket. This also impacted the way I approached the confidants. Knowing I had limited time to do everything, and not giving a confidant the correct answer would mean I needed to raise their affection before I could rank them up. Instead of choosing the options I liked the most, I ended up just saying what people wanted to hear. Yikes. Too real. Anyway, next let's talk about the exploration phase. To do this, you'll meet up at the Phantom Thieves hideout, which changes location as the game progresses, but starts out on the rooftop of Shujin Academy. Again, an anime trope. As I just mentioned in my rant, if you choose to explore, you'll be unable to do anything else that day, because Morgana will tell you to rest. So it's important to plan around that, especially if a certain confidant you want to rank up is available that day. From here, you can evaluate your progress in a palace, or go to that dungeon. You can also choose to go to Mementos, a randomly generated multi-floor dungeon. It's like a creepy mix of a horror game and Pokemon Mystery Dungeon, which is oddly pretty cool. You get to drive around and find treasure, grind, and encounter shadows from dungeons you've already completed, which is important since palaces disappear after completion. You'll also occasionally get side quests that require you to go here and beat a mini-boss. And as I mentioned, you'll occasionally hear little snippets of conversation between your party members, which further helps flesh them out. All in all, Mementos is a cool place to hang out. You know, for being a literal hellscape made out of nightmares. And as you clear palaces, new areas open up, so it's worth revisiting every so often. Palaces are the game's main dungeons. They are a manifestation of the distorted desires in someone's heart. As the Phantom Thieves, your team's job is to search these dungeons for the treasure, which is the source of these distorted desires, and what caused the person who owns the palace to become evil in the first place. Taking the treasure forces them to have a change of heart and repent their crimes. The palaces each have their own puzzles and gimmicks to match the theme of their location and the palace owner. Some involve more of an emphasis on stealth, like the Bank Palace where you have to hide not only from hostile shadows, but also security cameras. Others have you trying to navigate mazes like the Casino Palace, or the stupid airlocks in the Space Palace, and Morgana keeps lying saying you're almost to the treasure, and it's miserable. Oh, I hate this palace. The music is the only redeeming thing about it. I hope they completely redesign it in Royal. So, yeah, the palaces are a bit hit or miss. I might even say that the puzzles in the palaces themselves are the weakest aspect of the game for me. I certainly don't enjoy them as much as the ones in Zelda, though I'm also the only person on the planet who likes Ocarina of Time's Water Temple, so maybe my opinion doesn't mean much. What's cool is you can either do the palaces in 1 or 2 sittings, or take your time and spread it out over several days. Either works as long as you reach the end before the time limit. What the game doesn't tell you right away though, is that you actually need to finish exploring 2 days before the deadline, so you have enough time to send a calling card and trigger the boss battle, both of which take a full day. Further, some of the palaces may require you to return to the real world and interact with the target in order to make progress. This part isn't really conveyed well and could lead to some people running out of time. Thus, it's better to get things wrapped up sooner rather than later, which can cut into the amount of time you have to prepare. And even if you do finish early, be prepared for your teammates to bug you every day asking to send a calling card. Hey Joker, we should send a calling card. We're running out of time. We only have 18 days. Guys, if we send a calling card now, I won't have time to make lockpicks and curry. Just freaking chill. In addition to the puzzles, your progress through the palace will be blocked by enemies called shadows. If they see you, they'll raise the palace security levels, which leads to tougher battles and a risk of being tossed out of the palace. This adds a bit of a stealth element as you can hide behind objects and sneak around enemies, or even sneak up on them. If you sneak up on an enemy, you can ambush them and get your turn off before they can react. Before we get into battle, let's talk a bit about your opponents. Shadows are demons, literary characters, and beings from various mythos, with some rather interesting designs, like Belphegor. Geez, I thought Yokai Watch had toilet humor. Or Mara, who I cannot show you because I would like my channel to stay up. I mean, I think I'm already kind of pushing it when I use certain characters for the thumbnails on my Fae videos. While usually these shadows are created by negative thoughts and thus drawn to the distorted hearts of palace owners, if you can show them that you understand them, they'll become a persona and lend you their power. Joker has a special ability called Wildcard, which allows him to summon multiple persona, whereas your teammates each have a set persona. This allows you to convince enemies you find in dungeons to join you. If you do, you can summon them in battle, or fuse them to create stronger personas, or even sacrifice them to give one of your other personas experience. These services are done for you by Igor and his wardens, Caroline and Justine, in the Velvet Room, which can be accessed at the starting area of dungeons, as well as by the weapon shop in town. By paying them, you can access their services, as well as summon back your old persona. The personas all have an arcana that they belong to, based off the various arcana of tarot cards. Your various confidants also represent an arcana. And if you have a persona with you that matches the confidant's arcana, you get more affection points with them for giving good answers. On the flip side, the higher your confidant rank, the more bonus experience your persona will get when you fuse a persona of that arcana. This is called an arcana burst, and can give your persona a nice boost over ones you find in palaces. I think the various arcana also affect how fusions are determined, though I don't really understand the system. Each persona has various types of attack. Physical attacks can deal either melee or gun damage and cost hit points to you. Then there are skills that cost SP. These are single or AoE elemental attacks that deal wind, fire, ice, electric, nuclear, psychic, bless, or curse damage. In addition to attacks are healing spells, as well as ones that provide various buffs or debuffs to allies or enemies, or cause or cure status conditions. These also cost SP, and all of these have interesting names. Some are easy to pick up on, like the Bufu series of spells are ice spells, but then some are just confusing, like the ones that affect stats. That's fine in battle where you can just look at what a skill does, but Persona also have passive abilities, like Auto Mataru Kaja, which you can't check in battle. It can be confusing to keep all these straight since they're not straightforward names like Auto Attack Up All. Minor gripe, but worth mentioning. Coming from Smash, of course I expected Joker's starting persona, Arsene, to be this monstrous force. You know, like how you can be losing a whole match, activate Arsene, and then just autopilot to victory. Anyway, I was really disappointed to find that Arsene, well, he really sucks here. Like, he has 2 weaknesses and stops getting new skills at level 7 bad. It sucks because he looks really cool. I think I get why he's so bad, and it's to encourage you to use all the other personas and use the strengthening features as opposed to just playing it like your first Pokemon game, where you just roll with your starter till they're level 70 versus the level 60 champion and stomp everything in your path. I didn't even notice he'd stopped getting new skills actually until like level 30, because with the various ways of strengthening personas, I was still giving him new skills fairly often. Going back to that Pokemon comparison where Pokemon are your companions that are meant to stick with you and grow on your journey, here the personas are treated more as a resource. Use them till you outgrow them and can use a better one. Then throw the old one away to pass on new skills, give experience, or fuse into something stronger. It doesn't matter because you can just summon them right back anyway as long as you've got the cash. As a result, I found myself not really forming bonds with the characters like I do in, say, Pokemon or Yokai Watch, and instead treating them more like tools. I didn't even really end up with any faves beside Arsene for most of the game as a result of this. As someone who does like to stick with my faves in games like the aforementioned Pokemon and Yokai, and even ones like Fae, this playstyle felt a little weird and hard to get used to. As strange as it was, one positive is that I ended up actually using more of the game's collectible monsters rather than just seeing them, unlike something like Pokemon where I only ever use maybe 20 of the 800 plus creatures on any given run. What's that? We don't get 800 anymore? They cut the decks? Well dang, just play this then. Anyway, now that I've covered the basics of the persona themselves, let's tackle the battling system. In battle, you'll have a variety of options, and you can even unlock additional ones like swapping party members mid-battle via leveling up certain confidants. At base though, you have the options to check the enemy, escape, use an item, perform a melee attack, guard to reduce damage, summon a persona, which equates to using a spell or ability in other RPGs, or finally, gun? Joker has a gun? Why didn't anyone tell me? Okay, real talk, I got made fun of because when Joker got added to Smash, I didn't know he had a gun because people only ever talked about his knife. And this isn't like other Smash characters' guns. It's not like Captain Falcon or Snake who don't get to use their guns. It's not like Fox and Falco's blaster. It's not even like Bayonetta's old-timey magic bullet-shooting revolver things. This is a straight-up, real-world looking gun that actually just straight-up shoots bullets, and it kind of sucks. When someone, either you or your opponent, gets hit with a weakness or a critical hit, they'll fall down. When you down an enemy, you trigger a one more, which is basically an extra turn. Again, this goes for your opponents as well. During a one more, you can take another standard action, or if you've raised confidant levels with allies, you can trigger a baton pass to let them take the extra turn instead. This brings in a lot of strategy with team comps and allows you to potentially chain together one mores, swapping between party members and abusing weaknesses to down the entire enemy team. If you manage to down all the enemies, you'll have two options. You can try and negotiate, or deliver a devastating all-out attack for massive damage. I usually tried to end things with an all-out attack on turn 1 to blitz through battles. This also ate up my SP like crazy though. However, as I mentioned, you can also negotiate with the enemy. You can either ask them for money, an item, or try to get them to join your roster of personas. This is done by answering questions they ask you and attempting to give an answer they like. Again, I'm not just allowed to say how I really feel. I need to tell others what they want to hear. It's as if I'm wearing a mask and can't reveal my true feelings, or something. While it's not necessarily the most unique RPG I've ever played, I've got to say, I appreciate the fact that unlike a lot of others where battles can kind of drag on, here, even when fighting a ton of enemies, I feel battles can go pretty fast if you know what you're doing thanks to the down, one more, and all-out attack system. This, alongside the fact you can ambush most enemies to get your attacks off before them, means that even if it suffers from the typical RPG problem of eventual boring repeat encounters, it doesn't feel like as much of a drag. There's also an option to fast forward battles, though when using it you'll only use melee attacks, so that's not always good, especially if the enemy reflects melee. But between all this, even if you're someone who typically gets bored of turn-based RPGs, you may be able to put up with it here. Or not, I don't know, I've always liked them. One thing that sucks about this game versus others is that in most RPGs, the one-hit kill moves have a high chance of failing. Moves like Whack in Dragon Quest or Fissure in Pokemon rarely actually hit, and when they do, it's usually no big deal. Here though, I found that the enemies used one-hit KO spells a lot more often, and they felt like they hit a bit more often too, though that might just be my imagination. No biggie though, I'll just revive my team. After all, you get revival spells fairly early, and I have like 20 plus revival beads. Oh, but wait, if Joker dies, that's it. Game over. Immediately, back to your last save room, which in some palaces could be an hour or more back. Same goes for if an enemy gets a lucky crit and just happens to hit Joker with their one more. This is frustrating. I know in like Fire Emblem, if your lord or player character dies, you restart the level, and this is the same idea, but it feels more fair there since while you can still get taken off guard by an unlucky crit, if you're in enemy range and got hit in the first place, that's on you, as opposed to just popping up randomly. That's mostly me whining, but man, it was frustrating to lose an hour or more of progress. Funnily enough, I played the Dragon Quest XI demo after starting this game, and it had an option to make the game more difficult by counting the hero dying as a full party wipe. I called it the Persona 5 difficulty setting. Anyway, that about wraps up the gameplay, so let's end this. Persona 5 has a lot going for it. It has an intriguing story, fun and interesting cast, and an awesome presentation, both in terms of the stylized graphics and an awesome soundtrack. The gameplay is no slouch either, with day-to-day interactions that break up the dungeons as well as flesh out the world and characters, although managing time can be intimidating. It also has a relatively engaging combat system for a turn-based RPG, though it can be rather confusing at first to learn all the options as well as various spell names. While it may not be everyone's cup of tea, particularly those already not fans of RPGs or those not ready to commit to its lengthy playtime, it's easy to see why it's stolen the hearts of so many. Overall, I enjoyed it a lot. Now would I say it's worth getting a whole new console just to play? No I wouldn't. But if you happen to have a PlayStation 4, I highly recommend giving it a try. Put it on Switch, you cowards! You already got Joker and Smash, people will buy it, just take our cash so we can take some hearts. You know, for a game about rebelling and all that, Atlas really is content just staying nice and cozy under Sony's thumb. Just saying. Anyway, now that I've played this, I'm pretty interested to try some of the other games in the series, like Persona 3 and 4, or maybe even a Shin Megami Tensei game. I think I'll skip the one with Hitler though.
So those are my thoughts on Persona 5. I know it's a bit late, a few years actually, but with Joker being a little more relevant again thanks to things like joining Smash Bros, Persona 5 Scramble, and Persona 5 The Royal coming out, I thought it was worth taking a look at again. Speaking of Persona 5 Royal, I'm kind of interested in giving it a shot. You know, taking a look at the game now that I actually have an idea of what I'm doing, seeing the new characters and locations, and just seeing what else has changed. Although, I'm not ready to go back to the Space Palace! But I'll worry about that later. For now, I'm Hoodie Angel Brandon, and this show's over.